Hi! JDisc Discovery has already an extensive object model that collects all kinds of data from discovered devices with just a click of a button. But there will always be use cases that require some data that is not collected. So there is the mechanism of custom attributes. But today I will show you a new feature, which is custom SNMP data collection, which is especially helpful for network devices. Welcome to the JDisc YouTube channel. So let's briefly revisit the feature of custom attributes in JDisc Discovery. Now, if you have an asset that has been discovered, that usually has a couple of standard attributes in the JDisc object model that you have out of the box. And there is the feature of custom attributes, which allow you to define new attributes of certain types, for text or date, enumeration, integer, etc., to be defined as an extension to this data model. Well, and there have been the capabilities that you can run a script, a batch, a command, or a PowerShell or VB script shell that fills this attribute with some data. Could be some piece of text, an integer value, etc. Well, and what's new now is that you can also collect a SNMP table or an SNMP Scala data using SNMP data collection. And that will be our topic today. Then let's walk through the different steps that we need to do in order to collect custom SNMP data. Well, first of all, we need to identify the values on the device that we want to collect. These OIDs or object identifiers are a numerical representation of the address of the data on the device for using SNMP. These are usually defined in the management information base or MIB that the vendor of the device provides for download on its website, but there are also certain portals that collect different of these MIBs that you can browse them. So for example, oidinfo.com. Then we need to look at that data. So which of these values are we really using or are we requiring? And for that we can use, for example, SNMP walk either in JDisc or with an external tool so that we see how the data looks like on the device. Then, if we know the OID and the values that we need, we can configure the SNMP data collection in JDisc Discovery. And if you've done that, we run the discovery. And finally, after we run the discovery on each discovered asset, we have the custom attributes. So we check them and then we make use of them in our use case. So let's take, for example, the following use case. We have switches in our environment. These switches are already discovered, so we know their identification, their model, and all the information that JDisc has in its usual data model. But these switches contain a log file with errors in remote monitoring management information base. So what we want to do is we want to configure the custom data collection with using SNMP, run a discovery that collects these using SNMP data collection so that we get the switch log in our discovery database of JDisc. Then we use the new JDisc GraphQL API and we write a script for that, a command line tool, right, which retrieves these logs and does something with it. So it downloads the logs, writes it to a log file. We can use this for monitoring, for example, a log file. We can forward it to a log aggregator like Splunk or ElkStack, etc. We can pass it to a security scanner. There are a couple of things that we might want to do with such switch log files. It's pretty interesting. So the script that we write here, we actually have done that using the API. And this script can be found in the JDisc GitHub repository in the Python sample project. So that's what we do. We look on oidinfo for the management information base and we find that the entry that we want to look for is in the management information base of Armon. And there's a log table which has a log entry and it has certain information like an index, the timestamp and the description. So this is an SNMP table, but we could also go for a Scala value and collect that one. So as soon as we know the OID, we can run an SNMP walk using the JDisc UI and see how the values look like. So we see there's an index, there's the log lines in there, and if you have that, we can use the custom data collection feature from JDisc in order to collect the SNMP data. So we define a new custom attribute. We define for this custom attribute the single OIDs, so for the event log index, for the event index, for the timestamp, for the description, and each of these values will get a custom attribute later on. And we give it a description and say, okay, that's the Arman SNMP event log entry regarding RFC, whatever, etc. Right? So then we have defined the SNMP data collection and we do a discovery run. And so we look up the devices by type. So we find our switches. Here they are. And we look at the specific switch that we're interested in. We click on it, go to the custom attributes tab and see here, yep, our custom attributes are here. And you see the log lines with these 4 attributes that we have defined previously. So now we want to use the data that has been collected in the JDisc database. So we fire up the new GraphQL IDE from the web UI and type in our query. So that's how such a query could look like. Help can be found on the right hand side here, where you see how a device looks like, etc. So in this query, we find a specific device that you just looked up by name. So we want to get the device master data, so the ID, the model, the type. We want to get the custom attributes as a table. In this case, at a header, so the name, the description, and the attribute type of this header. And we want to get the values, the rows with their values. So you see, if we fire that up on the left or right hand side in the middle pane, we get the ID, the model of that's a switch, we get the custom attributes and see, okay, that's the custom attribute that has been defined, and these are the names, event log index, event index, timestamp, description, and here come the rows, and you see in the values you have these 2 indexes, you have timestamp, and you have the event description. So that's super. We're using a Python script. We can now process this JSON data and write it to a CSV file or pass it to another program. So if you want to put that into a script, here for example we have chosen Python. Don't worry if it's too technical for you. So this is a little command line client that has command line parameters. It logs into JDisc using the jQuery mutation API. It gets the logs with the query we just saw and then outputs the file either to a file or to the standard output as a comma-separated value file. So you see that here's the method that does the login, the authentication, of course with query parameters, does here the execution and the connection, and here's the method that just uses the query that we just saw, except for with query parameters, runs it, gets the result, and then uses some library to output it as comma-separated value file. This script, as you have it here, will be made available in the Python sample GitHub repository, of course. So finally, I would like to point you to a blog article in our JDisc website where you find a little bit more information and textual information about such a use case in addition to this video. So you saw how easy it is to use the new custom SNMP data collection feature. We would like to hear from your use case, and apart from that we would really like if you subscribe to this channel, click to the bell icon so that you get notified if there's a new video available, and we of course would really appreciate if you give us a like, and thanks for listening, and till next time, yours.